In this video, I'm going to look at multiplication and division with decimals using a 4-function calculator to help us along the way. So using a 4-function calculator is as simple as using, say, the calculator that's on your phone if you have nothing else. Now, I do caution you to be very careful if you're doing this for schoolwork that your instructor allows you to use your phone, but with homework, usually it's no big deal. A 4-function calculator means that it can only do addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, essentially. Thus the 4 functions. So here, all you're really going to do is you're going to take what you see on your paper, type it into your calculator, and write down your answer. So here I have 0.87 times 64, and I'm going to hit enter, and so here we end up with 55.68. Okay. Now notice I wrote the entire decimal down. The reason for that is because nowhere did I ask you to round. If you do not see round to the nearest something, then we're expecting, or you would be expected to write down the entire decimal you see. This next one, I have 32.4 times 10,000. And hit enter. And so here we have 324,000. Now this one, if you look at, is actually old school division. Again, you can use your calculator to do it. What you have to remember is that the number inside the division sign goes first, so 0.07488, and the number outside goes second, so divided by 0.032, and hit enter. And so here this comes out to being 2.34. Now the other way we see division looks like a fraction. And so again, what we have to remember is that the top goes first, so 426.45, and we divide it by the bottom, 100. Gives you 4.2645. Now in this next one, notice it's also doing a division, but I've given you a direction where I'm asking you to round to the nearest hundredths. Your first step is to complete the division. So here, the first thing we want to do is we actually want to divide, and we want to figure out what it becomes. So again, the number under the division sign goes first, so this is 14.91129, and we're going to divide that by the number outside, 1.23, and hit enter. So we end up getting 12.123. After you divide, your second step is to round. And in this case, we want the hundredths. So if you remember, hundredths is going to be the second spot. And when we round, we go to the spot that we want. So we want the hundredth spot here, which means I have to look at the spot directly to the right of it, and I have to ask myself, is that number 5 or greater? And in this case, no, it's not. It's only a 3. Because of that, the rounding says we are going to stay the same, and thus our result becomes 12.12. And notice this is to the hundredth space. Now, like with everything else, sometimes the math is not easily seen. Here, we need to find the perimeter and the area of a rectangle with a length of 10.5 centimeters and a width of 2.8 centimeters. So the first thing that I would do is I would draw myself a small little mini picture, kind of give myself a heads up of what it looks like. And I would input my information. So I'm told that the length is 10.5 centimeters, and we're told that the width is 2.8 centimeters. Now first of all, we know perimeter can be twice the length plus twice the width. So here you want to plug things in. So this is 2 times 10.5 plus 2 times 2.8. We can use our calculator in order to calculate the answer. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use this little parenthesis sign here to open a parenthesis, and then we're going to do 2 times, and it's 10.5. Then we need to close it. We are going to add this to our width, which is 2 times 2.8. And we're going to head and hit equals. And so this is going to give us our perimeter of 26.6 centimeters. Now when we're looking for area, we're looking for length times width. So in this case, we would be looking at 10.5 times 2.8. So to do that, again, says we can pull and use our calculator. So again, we have 10.5 times 2.8. Hit enter, and we end up with an area of 29.4 centimeters squared. Now our units are squared here because we have 2 of them multiplied together, and thus that's the difference between our area and our perimeter. Now the next one says, in 2003, Ohio led the nation in per capita funding for its public libraries with $39.87 spent per person. How much would funding would have been received that year by a library that served a town of 23,500 people? So here we have that they would have spent $39.87 per person, and we are going to multiply this by 23,500 people. And this is going to tell us how much was spent. So when you multiply that, you end up with $936,945. Now the next one says, Jeffrey works at a job with a regular pay of $12.50 an hour, up to 40 hours a week. Any work which exceeds 40 hours is paid at $18.25 an hour. If he worked for 53.4 hours, what would his total pay be? So the first thing that we need to know is we need to know how much overtime he has. So we have to do 53.4 minus a 40-hour week leaves us with 13.4 hours. In order to find total pay, we are looking at normal pay plus overtime pay. So here my normal pay would be 40 hours that week at the regular pay of $12.50 plus my overtime pay. So my overtime hours were 13.4 times overtime pay of $18.25, and that is going to give you a total. So again, if you take a look at your calculator, we are going to open our parentheses and we are going to do 40 times 1250 and close the parentheses. We are then going to add and open a new one, 13.4 times 18.25. We're going to close it and we're going to hit enter. And we come out with a total pay of $744.55. Here we have Walter Payton played football for the Chicago Bears for 13 years. In those years, he carried the ball 3,838 times for a total of 16,726 yards. What was his average yardage per carry? So here, to find the average, we have to do the total yards divided by the number of carries. So here the total yards was 16,726 and the total number of carries was 3,838. So when we divide those, we're going to end up with 4.357. Now here we want to round to the nearest tenth. So again, when we're looking for where to round, the 10th spot is going to be the first spot after the decimals. So that means I have to look at the number directly to the right, and this number is 5. Therefore, it means we're going to round up so the solution, or the yards, becomes 4.4 yards. And that was the average. Okay, next we have that a professor has graded a test of 5 students and their scores were 76.4, 100, 84.7, 10.2, and 68.3. The question says, what is the average of the scores? So again, to find the average, we have to sum the scores divided by the number of scores, which is the same as saying the number of students. So in this case, we're going to have 76.4 plus 100 plus 84.7 plus 10.2 plus 68.3, and we're going to divide that whole thing by the 5 test scores. So the first thing that I would do is I would add up everything in the numerator, and then I would divide that value by 5. So the way that looks is we're simply going to add everything up. So 76.4 plus that 100 plus the 84.7 plus 10.2 plus 68.3 and hit enter. I'm going to leave this number here on my screen, and I'm going to right away hit the division sign and divide by 5. And so there, my average score on the test was going to be 67.92. Last, if a car travels 330 miles on 15 gallons of gas, how many miles per gallon does it average? So again, the average is going to be the number of miles to the number of gallons. In this case, the number of miles was 330 miles, and my gallons was 15 gallons. So we're going to do 330 divided by 15, which is going to give us 22, and it's miles per gallon. And so there you have it. In a nutshell, that is everything that you need to know to get you started with being able to multiply or divide any decimals together under any situation. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, remember to have tons of fun with your math, and I'll see you next time.